Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
It always feels really good when your Oilers go into a game that you know they should win. Everything about it seems like it should be not an automatic win on the scoreboard, but like all the pieces are there. Columbus on a long road trip. Edmonton just off a little break. All these different things all happening. Connor McDavid celebrating his 1,000th point. All these things coming together. Now, in so many times over Oilers history, when you have these moments of a team that should win, what happens? You show up, and then there's a big fart. Oh boy, here we go. Love hockey. Instead, get a terrible fart. But that was not the case today, as your Edmonton Oilers end up taking the win 6-3 over the Columbus Blue Jackets in a game that I will say, when the scoring opened for Columbus on that absolute goober of a goal that went in past Calvin Pickard, I was almost about to write this game off because it hasn't been awesome, but it was okay. It all worked out, and the Oilers continue to turn back into the team that we all thought they were going to be. And we break it all down here now on Game Over Edmonton. I am Graham Mosimann, so excited to have you here for this silly little post-game show where we just get super hyped about all the cool stuff that we get to be excited about when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers. This particular one, Connor McDavid, after getting his fancy little 1,000-point gold stick, puts up a 4-point night and absolutely dismantles the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, Connor McDavid, while it was great, he gets his goals. We love that. That's very fun. Much more encouraging to see Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman continue to figure things out a little bit more. And Leon, I know he's going to be in the league scoring race, probably against Sam Reinhart, which is such a weird sentence to have. But he does have moments where he goes a little quiet. And dodging that one, thankfully, as Leon keeps putting up really great performances. Zach Hyman started to, I think, figure it out a little bit. I mean, it was really good that he sat for the couple games that he did. I've been saying this for a very long time, that Zach Hyman is hurt in some form, and whether it was just not, whether it was something around the core that makes his skating not quite there, whether it was his hands, whatever it happened to be, it all looks to be kind of squared away, because he absolutely had probably one of the best games of his year so far. And it is just wild to think that Zach Hyman only has a handful of goals on the season, but he really looked much more comfortable. Those few games off, I don't think we can understate what an absolute big deal it was. Now, for first period was kind of, it was weird. You had a lot of high event hockey. The Columbus not scoring on the goals that they really should have been. It seems a little weird, especially for this version of the Columbus Blue Jackets, because despite their not awesome record, which is, again, totally understandable, they've been able to score at a pretty ridiculous pace so far this year. Like, their average player shooting percentage is in the mid-teens, which when you look at a roster that doesn't have people like Patrick Laine anymore and hasn't had Boone Jenner for huge chunks of the year, you didn't really think that was going to be a number that was kind of sustainable. So for them to not put in the goals that they've been putting in all season, I think was a little surprising. That first one on Calvin Pickard, though, big woofs. Did not love anything about that, but able to tie this game up and go into the first intermission 1-1. I think was a good sign. And you saw the Oilers kind of go step away, have their intermission, and then come back in a much stronger, more concise version of the team that they can be. Maybe I'm just a jaded Oilers fan. I've just seen this happen over and over and over the last number of years where you think everything will be fine, it'll all work out, and they turn into kind of a butt. Really nice to see a 6-goal performance, especially after the 1-0 loss to the Golden Knights. But the Oilers have put together a really wonderful little stretch of hockey over the past bit of time. Of course, 6-3 tonight over Columbus. 1-0 to the Golden Knights. The last game they lost was against Minnesota. Aside from we take the Vegas game out of the way, the only other game they've lost since the mid chunk of November was to the Minnesota Wild, who were one of the West teams. But in that time, we have a 6-2 win against the Rangers, 4-3 win against Utah, 4-1 over the Avs, and then 6-3 over Columbus now. And the one consistent thing about all those games, when you put them all together, 6 goals tonight, 4 goals against Colorado, 4 goals against Utah, 6 against the Rangers, even put up 3 in a losing effort to the Wild, but again put 5 up against the Senators. The thing that this team was missing all year long had been scoring and goaltending. Now the goaltending, goaltending's still not quite there. But the scoring has come back in a really, really strong way. And I want to take a moment to, in the second period of this show, to talk about the guys that we're starting to see have the kind of resurgence that we need to see from them for this team to continue doing so well. I want to tell you, though, before we get to that, we have merch here on Hyperdrive, on the Game Over Network. There's so many things happening, okay? We have so many things across the network. We're going to talk about Hyperdrive Hockey a little bit later. We'll talk about Game On Hockey a little bit later as well. But let's focus just right now on the really kind of cool thing about our merch store. Now, we have a bunch of different designs for, like, things you can get. I'm a huge fan of the goalie designs kind of stuff that we have over the last little bit. If you go pop over to GameOverNetwork.com, you can see some of our stuff. It is getting colder. We do have toques as well. And if for the holidays, if you use the promo code GOHolidays, you'll get 15% off all hoodies and our toque. So you just got to go to the GameOverNetwork.com to feel that one. Surgeon Battle, your counter to our goaltending not being good, in my opinion, is that Skinner has had above 930 in 4 of his last 5 starts. Skinner wasn't in goal tonight, so we'll park that one for a little bit. We're still going to talk about Calvin Pickard. I'm just not going to be sold in this goaltending lineup probably for the whole season. I don't see it. I don't think it's going to happen. But hey, I would love to be wonderfully wrong. So let's touch on some of the players that we saw pop up on the score sheet tonight that we absolutely have been missing all year long. Chiefly on that one, of course, Zach Hyman picking up a pair of goals tonight and looking like the vintage Hyman that we've kind of known and loved. The 50-goal seasons are probably never going to happen again. That feels like a wonderful kind of one-time blob that we got from him. But the things you want to see most about Zach Hyman, the willingness to go make a big check and move someone off the puck, the willingness to fight his way to the front of the net, the need for him to just be kind of a shit kicker to open up the ice for other players. We're really, really, really starting to see that one. Really starting to see that come back together for Zach Hyman. Jeff Skinner, while he has not been the guy that I think we necessarily wanted to, a big part of that, I'm going to still argue with Jeff, is it's probably been put lower on in the lineup than he could have been. Now, even especially with Evander Kane out, he was kind of seen as the goal getter replacement. And so far on the year, he does have 5 goals, which, you know, as many games as we are into the season right now, you obviously want to see more. But ultimately, this is a player who is making $3 million over the season. Okay, 5 goals on the year, 5 assists now, as he picks up a 2-point night this evening. Yeah, 10 points on the year is not a lot when you want to see from Jeff Skinner, a guy who has, last year threw up 46 points. The year before that, threw up 82 points. The year before that, 63 points. It would take a minor miracle at this point for Jeff Skinner to really pull himself up to get to the level that we saw when he was with the Sabres for the last couple of years that he was there. But if you can put together a couple more runs like this, I mean, it's not crazy to think by the end of the season you can have 15, maybe 20 goals out of Jeff Skinner if he puts on a really good performance, which when you're paying $3 million for a guy, I don't know is the worst thing in the world. I still have a part of me that wonders if it is just like a chemistry fit with Jeff Skinner and kind of the higher players up the lineup, because he's pretty much playing with Adam Henrique, who at one point in time was an incredibly skilled and incredibly effective, third overall pick that was ripping up the New Jersey Devils. I mean, he famously helped Taylor Hall get to his Hart Trophy season. So what you do with Jeff, I think the speeds is still not quite there, but like if you're at this point can hopefully get out 15 goals, maybe 40 points, that's really what you can ask for a $3 million player. Although I would still be very much not opposed if Taylor Hall's in a good place. Health-wise, he still has a speed. He put up a hat trick a little while ago. Maybe it's just the big softy in my heart wanting to see Taylor Hall come back to the Oilers one day. I would deeply love to see a move where you take left shot for left shot, totally a chemistry fit, throw Chicago whenever you have to have them retain half on Taylor Hall. They'll take the full Jeff Skinner hit, and then we can basically make a swap for $3 million players each. That is my dream. Unsure if it'll happen. I might just be overly nostalgic, but look, there could be a chance, and it could happen. Also want to throw a little bit of love here tonight as well to Adam Henrique with a pair of assists on the night. And Adam Henrique, he's almost had some of his best performances with the Oilers, at least when we picked him on the trade deadline. Some of his best performances really were as a winger. I mean, remember the first goal he scored for the Oilers, that beautiful snipe that just made you feel, oh yeah, this is going to be a good fit. And he definitely has a little bit, but you can tell there's been a bit of settling in to a new role, especially when he was with the Ducks. He was basically their second line center, kind of firmly set. And that's really all you needed. His role here, much lesser. I would like to see a little bit more when it comes to Adam Henrique. I would like to see a little bit more physicality out of him. I mean, he is 34. He's not super tall, but one of the great things he did especially when he was helping Taylor Hall be so good, and again, I know that was like a decade ago, but one of the things he did is he used his kind of size to sneakily get into places to push out other players, and I haven't seen that as much quite as yet. Again, he's in a third line position. You're only getting 15-ish minutes a night, maybe probably less, and you can only produce so much when you have that as your kind of baseline. For what you've seen, but it's really good to see Adam Henrique go a little bit more. I am fascinated to see what this team, what ends up happening when Victor Arvidsson gets back, if Victor Arvidsson ever ends up coming back. That guy's injury history is so weird. He'll be day-to-day for several months, but when he does come back, you'll hopefully have that kind of player that he showed he could be. Although, I mean, at this point, how well Vasily Podkolzin has been performing. I don't know if you want to move him off. I was really, really happy with Draisaitl's line tonight as well. Although Everton does play the other side, so it'll probably work out. But we'll probably see some more shifts and adjustments for the Oilers as they go on through this little chunk of the season. Now, when it comes to, I want to talk about Columbus coming up here in the third period of this show, because they have a lot of interesting things going for them, and it makes me sad that they're potentially, possibly, one of the absolutely worst run organizations in hockey. But before we get to there, I want to tell you all about Hyperdrive Hockey. It is the flagship show on the Game Over Network. You can find it on Tuesdays and Fridays. We'll have a brand new episode coming out tomorrow. Now, the video version will be on our main Game Over Network feed. So you can go find that super easy. The podcast version, of course, wherever fine podcasts are sold. Spotify Wrap just came out. I'm embarrassed at how many hours of super lefty political talk, which is totally cool and fine. I would love to see the Game Over Network shows and Hyperdrive Hockey appear on some Spotify Wrap next year. So if you want to give those a like, give those a subscribe, it can mean absolutely the world. Before we move into our third period, Sergeant Battle, great point. Captain Peng, as well as he has made the Avry injury sting less. That is a really good point. I did feel bad for Captain as he sat for a little bit after taking some pretty big hits. It's so funny with him because I remember at one point in time, especially when he was with the Leafs and had a couple really nice seasons, there was a moment where I would have lost my mind at the Oilers picking up Kasperi Kapanen. Oh, as you put him with Connor McDavid, and he'll score 60 goals, which is a nice thing to say until you remember that Kasperi Kapanen, for the most part, has no hands. They are made of stone. Jace McCabe, glad we won. Heck yeah, we did. What a good, lovely, fun day when the Oilers pull off a win and keep a very good run of hockey on the go. I want to dive in a little bit to the Columbus of it all, because they're a truly baffling team with how they've handled everything from their Mike Babcock situation to how they deploy some of their young players to the... People always put in the Zach Werenski contract as one of the worst contracts in the NHL. Zach Werenski is very much underperformed at the start of this deal. I thought this evening it was abundantly obvious that it was pretty much like him and Dante Fabro and like maybe Severson a little bit that were kind of holding this team together from a defensive zone. And Elvis Merzlikins is not an amazing goalie. He has moments where he can be very good, but there's really nothing there. The kind of cool parts of this team very much should be Kent Johnson's, the Adam Fantillis, who had some really nice opportunities tonight. That Cole Sillinger goal I thought was just a wire. He is a heck of a player. But so much of it, especially with Boone Jenner being hurt, feels like that team is putting all of their kind of hopes and dreams on the shoulders of Sean Monahan. And like full credit to Sean Monahan for pulling his career out of the absolute hellscape that it was when he was at the end of his time in Calgary. I lived in Calgary at the time when this guy couldn't even stand in front of the net properly anymore because his hips were in such bad shape. And the Flames, whether it's like their trainers, their coaching staff, you could tell every single time Monahan was going out to try to play the puck, even after he would come back from long stretches of injury, he wasn't all there, and they never gave the dude a chance to heal. Ever. So Montreal being able to pull his career up, get a first-round pick out of the deal, excuse you, Montreal, and then kind of rehabilitate him. Montreal ends up, trading him off for another first-round pick before he finally ends up signing in Columbus. And you could argue that at this point, without Boone Jenner there, Sean Monahan's the captain of this team. And while that rocks for Sean Monahan, no, that ain't it, fam. You need a little bit more than that. So hopefully he can shelter Adam Fantilli to have him kind of develop into the number one center that you drafted him to be. But Columbus is so odd. Like you're hoping for Don Waddell to pull that whole team out and fix them when they have such a bad history of developing and putting together good talent. It just sucks. And yeah, Sergeant, you're such a good point that the loss of Gaudreau doesn't help at all. It really doesn't. Not to be a kind of big downer about this, but because we have talked about so much about the Gaudreaus, especially over on Game On Hockey this week with Columbus's game in Calgary a couple nights ago. But I want to say it was maybe like 4 or 5 days, not even, before we heard about the accident. I was listening to the What Chaos pod with certified oil man DJ Bean, as well as Pete Blackburn, and they had Sean Monahan on the show, and they talked about him signing in Columbus, having his little stint in Winnipeg, kind of being all through these, being weirdly enough an exclusively like Canada guy, and then why he wanted to finally, move down to the States. And he said a big reason was because of Johnny Gaudreau and how excited he was, like literally 5 days before the before 5 days before the drunk driving event. Probably shouldn't call it an accident. That's on me. How excited he was because he had the same age kid as Johnny and Meredith, and how he was so excited for them to grow up together. So it's you definitely have to look at like a lot of the tragedy with Columbus. The players have been through so much. I'm really grateful for their sake that they're now done with the Calgary game and the Calgary and Columbus game, and they can just go out and play hockey, even though he'll be a part of that team till forever at this point. It's still shocking how bad Columbus has been managed, how bad they've been run. They're just not a good franchise and never really have been for their entire NHL history. Like the high mark for that team was beating Tampa Bay in the bubble series. That was sort of a bubble, but not quite a bubble. Like was it Tampa Bay? Yeah, it was, or even the year before the bubble. Their highlight as a franchise is beating Tampa Bay. Haven't hit that level ever since. Sergeant Battle also pointing out the poor development of Juracek is going to come back to bite them. I mean, we'll see. David Juracek looks super good, and I still don't know why you moved off of him. It was a weird choice. A couple more thoughts on the Oilers. It is pretty late. We don't want to keep the show going too much. We'll get to overtime and some questions. So if you have any thoughts, feelings, emotions on the game, feel free to throw them up in the chat, and we'll get to them before we wrap up here this evening. I want to touch on the really nice news that Connor McDavid obviously made the Four Nations face-off. I mean, we knew that was a fait accompli. But I will contend to you that it is a very, very good thing that both Evan Bouchard as well as Zach Hyman did not make that team. I think it's great. While that tournament is going to be super, super fun, Evan Bouchard, there's been some questions on his kind of commitment levels at times. Some people have wondered about his conditioning at times. And so the ability to have a 2-week break in the middle of the season while being able to go hang out in Mexico or do whatever he's going to do is going to be awesome. I think the same can be said for Zach Hyman as well. Although, hey, if this game ends up being the start of an absolute tear for Zach Hyman to kind of have him pile up a bunch of goals, both my fantasy team and the Oilers would appreciate it. But a 2-week break in the middle of the season, I think, is going to be a really, really, really good for this team. Connor McDavid's an absolute freak anyway. He'll be fine. He can play hockey forever, and he would probably still end up being the absolute best player in the league. Want to take a quick look over at the Oilers' schedule coming up over the next little while, because it is fairly interesting. They get back up on the ice against the St. Louis Blues coming up on Saturday. That game's going to be interesting for a lot of reasons, especially with Dylan Holloway and Broberg and the specters of those offer sheets hanging off in the universe. That'll be a fun one. The late night of hockey night in Canada coming up on Saturday. And then the Oilers have an absolute murderer's row going into the Christmas break. So if this game can be a catalyst for the Jeff Skinners, for the Zach Hymans, for Adam Henrique to maybe be more of a consistent goaltender, it would absolutely mean the world, because here's who the Oilers have over the next chunk of games. You got the St. Louis Blues, who are mid, aggressively mid, having already fired their coach this year. But then after that, you have the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are still, even without Steven Stamkos, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and you can't take them lightly. Then you have the Minnesota Wild, who have already beat the Oilers pretty soundly once and are without a doubt the best team in the NHL, which is terrifying because they still have a bajillion dollars in locked up cap space to a couple of buyouts from Parise and Ryan Suter from a little while ago. So then you go from the Wild, and you have the Golden Knights on a Saturday, and then you have the Panthers, then the Bruins, and it eases up a little bit with the Sharks and Senators going into Christmas. But this next chunk of the season, you absolutely have to pick up a win against St. Louis. Like, you have to. Because as the standings are sitting right now, the Oilers are tied with the Canucks with 30 points. They are 1 point back of the Flames, 3 points back of the Kings, and then 7 points back of the Golden Knights. So if you start to lose a little bit of momentum, I mean, you're not super worried about being caught by Seattle, who are 3 points back, and they're just a weird team. The Sharks have had a nice little run, but they're still, they're 5 points back of the Oilers. You're not going to have to be worried about them. The thing I really worry about is losing some ground on a Calgary, on a Los Angeles. I still think Vancouver's going to probably come back down to earth a little bit here, even though Kevin Lankinen has been playing just out of his mind in replacement of Thatcher Demko. But if you don't have a few wins here and at least get up into the Pacific Division top 3, I get a little nervous on where the seeding could end up. The Flames right now are being... Actually, I'll check a score on their game because they just went to overtime. Let's see how the Calgary Flames are doing. They have lost to the St. Louis Blues in overtime, so they still pick up the loser point. But the Flames' goaltending has been just jaw-droppingly good. Anytime Dustin Wolf is in the net for them, and he's like a little guy, but he's kind of in that UC Saros sort of way, where he's unreal when you really get him on the run. He's on 930 right now, and has been just winning pretty much any game the Flames put him in. So while he rides that out, I would be worried about losing ground to the Flames. And well, the Kings are just a weird team. So win against St. Louis on Saturday, Edmonton. That's all we ask. A bunch of hockey-loving nerds. As we make our way to the final segment of this little program, if you have any questions in the chat, you want to throw them up in there, please do right now. We'll get to them in the final segment of the show. But before we do that, I want to tell you about the other show that I'm on here on the Game Over Network. It is called Game On Hockey. Every single day, in 10 minutes or less, we take a quick rip around the hockey world. That'll include the international play. So we'll get into the World Juniors a whole lot when those get started. We get into the NHL, obviously, and we've been doing a lot of PWHL coverage as well. I love the PWHL so much. It is, in many ways, so much better hockey than we see in the NHL. The rules are better. It's a little bit more offensively focused. At times, it kind of feels like a blend between like lacrosse and hockey, which I deeply love. I mean, lacrosse is the sport that's like big close to my heart. So we cover all those bases on Game On Hockey. New episodes come out every single weekday. We try to get them out before your drive to work, but some days they end up a little late, and we'll push it a little more in the day because I'm just one guy doing my best with a little podcast. So if you could give that a like or a subscribe, that would mean the absolute world in helping our little company. Heading to a couple of questions that come to us on Twitter. This one from, are you a bot or are you a... it's fine. We'll figure this one out. Hey Graham, do you think Zach Hyman being back is going to save the season? Well, I think it's a big part of it. I mean, it's not. I think the season has been totally lost. Like when he was, at times, like his PDO was so comically bad at the start of the year, and PDO is the stat that kind of handles luck in the best way that you can in hockey. His PDO showed that his like kind of puck luck was just comically bad and unsustainably bad, and so there was enough of those kind of notes around all of the Oilers especially with like shooting percentages being really, really, really low and not quite what you'd expect them to be, that there's enough here that the Oilers would eventually, on the scoring standpoint, start to go back to the average, so progress to the mean of what you'd kind of expect them to do. And when you look at a last handful of games, you put up all these goals, starting to outscore your problems a little bit, I think you could kind of say that has happened. Still would like to see a little bit more consistency on the goaltending side, especially when Calvin Pickard's in the net. Two of the goals against were weird bounces. The second one you want saved, but it'll happen. From Sergeant Battle in the chat, and yeah, when you need a save though, you need a save, and when you hit playoff times, having a weird bounce that just flies through is gut wrenching and is going to neuter any momentum and any power you have. So I'm still concerned about that, but we'll get to it when we get to it. Hopefully when the Oilers start to make some additions as the playoffs get closer and closer and closer. I know it's not even Christmas yet. We're already talking about playoffs. They'll be here sooner than you think. Gosh darn it. That is going to wrap us up, though, here as we've just crossed over the 30-minute mark at Game Over Edmonton. If you like the show, give us a like over on the YouTube, or if you listen to it as a podcast, do it there. If you really liked it, leave a comment and review. And as well, thank you so much for joining us. Have yourself a wonderful evening. I will talk to you again probably around 11:30 Mountain on Saturday night as the Oilers will wrap up their game against the St. Louis Blues. Hopefully another win. That remains to be seen as we will see the return of Holloway and Broberg from those fateful offer sheets. Dun, dun, dun. Have yourself a wonderful Friday. Stay safe, stay warm, and we will talk very soon here on Game Over Edmonton, a presentation of the Game Over Network.
Is such a strong player. So impressed with your. All right, you want to say hi to your dad in Japanese?
Yeah.
Excellent for.
Worked, and the way we worked as a team, I think.
The pieces are there. Columbus on a long road trip. Edmonton just off a little break. All these different things all happening. Connor McDavid celebrating his 1,000th point. All these things